Hey there, guys and gals. Welcome to the cheapest or one of them podcasts on the internet today. This is Propaganda Comics Podcast. I'm your host, Benjamin Blankenship. So today I was looking into thinking about what we were going to talk about. This comic comes from 1984, series rather of comics comes from 1984. It was written by Chris Claremont. He was a man that saw the X-Men as more of a soap opera than a bunch of fill-in superheroes. Now, the X-Men, what caused them to do so well with so many people isn't that they were just this group of people that were persecuted, but they were this group of people that basically was like fill in the blank for any group of people that was persecuted. In 1984, Chris Claremont wrote a brilliant comic series, and it was called God Loves, Man Kills. There in the series, when it opens up, let me just lay out the platform for you. You have these two little kids running. It's sort of starting midways, I guess, into a story. It's already begun. These people that they're running from have murdered their parents. They're killing them because, like the X-Men, they're mutants. They have a mutated genetic code in their DNA, which gives different people different abilities. Cyclops, Storm, Wolverine, so on and so forth. You get the idea if you know anything about X-Men and mutants and Marvel Comics and all that. So they say, we're sending you to go to be with your parents, but you killed our parents. Why are you doing this? They shoot the little girl, they've shot the little boy. And the person says, from this group called the Purifiers, because you don't deserve to live. Why? Because they're mutants. Essentially, the Purifiers are thought of as kind of like a Ku Klux Klan sort of group, only it's aimed towards people that are mutants. They're bigoted towards them because they're mutants. They're painted as not just like a bad guy character, but it could be anybody in town. It could be the sheriff. It could be the librarian. It could be the pastor of a church. It could be whoever. And they're just normal people that are part of this group because they're against mutants, because some of it's fear, and which manifests into hatred, because look at these people's powers and everything that they can do, and they're a threat. And even the ones that are good, there's not enough of the good ones to keep the bad ones in check, to self-govern themselves, so we need to kill them all. The person that is fronting this up, he is a religious fanatic, and his name is William Stryker. William Stryker killed his wife and child, both mutants, was thrown from the explosion of the car. This is way back before this. This is his backstory, and he believes that God allowed him to live to preserve his life, to wipe mutants off the face of the earth. So a lot of things happen during this. It's this big kind of hyper-religious thing. He gets on TV. He talks about how they're dangerous. Professor Xavier gets on and tries to argue with him on television, but whereas Professor Xavier is trying to appeal to people's intellect, William Stryker is appealing to their fear. A kind of like mainstream media has been called out for doing innumerous amounts of times. Threats and violence and terror, and what are you going to do? I forget who it was way back when. There was a presidential campaign commercial that basically showed a mushroom cloud going up in the sky. This is real life. And it was more or less a vote for this candidate or you will all die kind of thing. That's not weird in the world. And it made its way into X-Men there in the comics, that it's dangerous not to stand with this man's ideals, was what he was trying to push out there. Cyclops called Professor Xavier out. He said, you handled it wrong, because instead of this man, William Stryker, trying to appeal to their intellect and quoting statistics and quoting numbers and all these other things. He got people riled up and afraid. This is before the Sentinels, before the, I think it's Wide Awake or whatever, that the government makes the Sentinels to hunt mutants. This predates all of that. In this specific series, Magneto joins up with the X-Men. You know, he's not one of these one-dimensional bad guy characters, nor the X-Men one-dimensional characters at all. They've just not been written that way. But he sees things different than Charles Xavier. Charles Xavier wants everybody to get along. He's kind of pacifistic. He's peaceful. He's an intelligible guy. Magneto kind of has, I don't know, maybe an Antifa sort of thing to him, that we can't make people understand, that we've got to fight fire with fire. I don't know, maybe that's not Antifa because they set the fires and you know, and call fire, because, you know, in which people would say, hey, they're being controlled with fear and things like that too. And when you get somebody quoting statistics like Xavier, they won't hear them. You know, that's a big thing that people would go all over the place with. But there's acts of real violence that are going on, and he is specifically targeting the individuals, not civilian, not doing anything targets, but specifically engaging the individuals, purveying violence against them. They have some of the Purifier people that aren't about to give up information, and he takes pieces of metal from like a car, and because he's the master of magnetism, he has these small strands of metal go coursing through their bodies, under their fingernails and all that, torturing them in the most agonizing way possible, because where he can't rationalize things with them, he tortures information out of them. This whole story, the way that it comes down and finally comes to a conclusion, and there's a lot of heated, fiery things in it. People die. The X-Men, there's people that are casualties that die, which is something that would periodically happen because they try to deal with, when you're somebody that's trying to create peace and everything, what do you do when somebody dies, when in the midst of you trying to do good stuff, which, you know, it's an interesting angle. But when Cyclops and everybody finally confront him, and he's got his big, looks like a Billy Graham crusade or everything, but it's a crusade against mutants, not to come to Jesus. He says we need to debate him. We don't need to go in there and kill him, because then he's just going to be a martyr, and that'll prove his point, and that'll show that we're exactly what he says that we are. You know, so unlike Magneto, Cyclops is right, of course. So they discredit him. They get in an argument with him. They make some points. They say things that go against his grain, where he twists the Bible and all that, some evolution-y things about coming from monkeys and all, you know, and whatever, which honestly that's where racism spawns from Darwinism. That's what the Nazis, you know, put in. You know, otherwise we all come from atoms, so you can't really have that. Nobody's more evolved than the other. But anyway, nonetheless, William Stryker's response, because Cyclops just whoops him all over the place, you know, intellectually, verbally, as he pulls out a gun and he's going to shoot Kitty Pryde. Kitty Pryde, you know, she's a teenage girl. She's the youngest member of the X-Men. She's kind of who people that were new to it would be watching it through. Of course, Wolverine's old and experienced. He's older than Magneto because of his regenerative abilities. He's lived a very, very, very long time. I don't know if anybody knows how long, but it's been a long time. I believe he's in like World War I and everything. But where he's going to gun down this teenage girl, he already kills one of his associates, by the way, the woman that's the most loyal to him, who happens to be a mutant. So even though she was working with him and was like-minded because of what she was that she couldn't help, he was such a bigot that he kills her. He knocks her off the stage and she snaps her neck. We never know what her abilities were. Where he's going to kill this teenage girl, a cop turns a gun onto him and shoots him, and you know we wind up that way. with the X-Men kind of winning in this bitter kind of victory, that this man stirred up things, how dangerous there were, and Cyclops saying, look, if we just go out there and kill him, we're only proving him right. We're only proving that we are violent, like he's saying that we're violent. So he goes out and combats him, and the man looks like a fool. That's William Stryker. It sets a lot of tone and ground for a lot of things that are going to happen later on. It shows that how Magneto is, that an enemy of my enemy makes my enemy my friend. You know, we're on the same side. The X-Men are mutants. He's mutant. They're being persecuted by somebody that hates mutants. Let's team up. He's not necessarily a bad guy. He believes that the cause justifies the means, which it doesn't always, you know. And he does bad things with good intentions. That's how Magneto is. He, I think his heart's in the right place, but he has this way of thinking because he's been persecuted. This isn't an episode about like the most Jewish characters in comics, but Magneto would rank. He was in the Holocaust. He's a Jew. He was in a concentration camp when he was young. So he knows what persecution is. He knows what being spat on is for who you are in multiple capacities. And that's God loves, man kills. It's an interesting story line from 1984 in Marvel Comics and X-Men. And y'all can go and you can check that out. Marvel's done a lot with the Bible. They had the Thing. They had the Thing, Benjamin Grimm, and Ghost Rider do a team up and meet a kind of magical manifestation retelling of Jesus Christ out there. And I think it was Arizona. There's a character that was it was like an illusion, sort of. It's long and drawn out, but they've done a lot of things where they did Bible-y things. It depends on who was writing it or who was telling it, but certainly that character and that angle, you know, it hits some things close to home. When you say that something is a religious necessity or a medical necessity or whatever, and you're controlling people by fear, and they're just blindly in throngs standing behind something, even though it's intrinsically wrong, that's real life, you know. But anyway, that concludes the end of this podcast, and we will have more for y'all later. If you enjoy this podcast, Satirical Comics, really there's going to be a lot more things too than that. I'm looking at doing some action stuff, maybe even like some books, episodical chapters, and whatever. Y'all let me know what you like. You can support that and get access to that wonderful content and all sorts of other goodies by supporting us for a minimum of $1 a month at www.patreon.com/propaganda comics. We also have a Facebook page. On the Facebook page, it's facebook.com propaganda comics. That is an IX. And on Patreon, it's spelled normal, the ICS. Y'all have a good one. Keep reading. Bye-bye.